Agami Ray was just a quiet transfer student until he started burning people with blue flames. Turns out, he's code number 06, the weakest member of a secret government team that punishes those the law can't reach. With his cursed left arm and a cold heart, he's all about evil for evil. However, things change when a curious girl starts getting close and make him question everything he believes. But before any of this, Sakura usually takes the last bus home, with daily travels being boring as nobody is on the bus. However, one night, she glances out of the window only to find a man burning people alive in a mysterious blue fire. She panics and asks the bus driver to stop. However, the man says that even the Holocaust won't make him park the bus before the stop arrives. After exiting the bus miles away, Sakura hurriedly ran to the park. During this time, an officer on patrol stops and asks why she is running in the middle of the night. Sakura immediately tells him about the incident at the park and shows him the way. However, by the time these two get to the park, there is no sign of a fire or dead bodies. The officer knows that a large fire can't disappear in mere moments, and so he figures that Sakura is either drunk or she's been through enough rods to mess up her head. The officer explains that the scorch marks on the grounds are due to campfires and nothing more. Sakura can't prove what she saw that night. However, she is certain that it was true. Despite returning to her high school life, Sakura's mind continues to think about that man. These thoughts create an indefinite hatred towards men, causing her to beat the living shit out of her classmates at the judo club. Unexpectedly, Sakura is hailed as a genius amongst her peers. She excels at martial arts and is an A+ grade student. Aside from all of that, she manages to maintain her killer bod. All of the girls are jealous, as she is the maiden of every boy's dream. However, Aoba doesn't mind her taking all the attention. She has been Sakura's best friend since the first day of high school. As the two are about to enter class, the teacher introduces the girls to a new transfer student, but just seeing his face reminds Sakura of the man who was standing in the fire. The boy, Ryagami, quickly introduces himself and takes his seat. Naturally, the girls are in shock from his handsomeness while the boys are jealous. Yet, out of everyone, the most surprised is Sakura. She asks to talk with him privately in front of the whole class. This sends shockwaves of gossip around school, claiming that Sakura is in love. But in reality, Sakura asks if he was burning people alive in the park last night. She tells him to take off his glove to prove she was not hallucinating. Unexpectedly, Ray removes the gloves without any arguments and reveals his hand is uninjured. He just wears a glove to hide his ring, a special gift given to him by his friend after he lost and restrained and injured someone. Still, despite all that, Ray claims that Sakura and he can be good friends. Once he leaves, Aoba and the entire school eagerly approach Sakura to learn more about their conversation. Sakura says that Ray proposed they should be friends. Her words are taken out of context by the entire school, and they start hating Ray for rejecting the hottest girl in school. Sakura, however, continues to observe Ray from the sidelines. This makes Aoba think that she is really serious about him. But this distraction gives Ray enough time to sneak out of Sakura's eyes. After searching everywhere, Sakura decides to head back to the park. She thinks that a murder is always drawn to the crime scene and Ray will do the same. During her time there, an orphan dog whose owner just passed away disturbs her for food. Despite being kind to it, the dog refuses to let Sakura pet it, causing her to lash out. Suddenly, Ray arrives on the scene and is thrilled to see that Sakura is rude with everyone. It shows that she is more confident than the other girls, a quality which he admires. Unexpectedly, the dog acts friendly with him, which tells Sakura that he's not a bad guy. As the two of them converse, Sakura mentions the dog's owner was a homeless man who was killed by a gang with a weird tattoo. These gangs are so powerful that even the police can't touch them. Out of nowhere, Ray then asks Sakura if she wants them to be punished. He assumes that Sakura is like any other human, seeking revenge for her pain. However, she refuses to hurt others for something as pitiful as revenge. She is just sad that the old homeless man died without leaving a trace of himself in anyone's heart. Ray disagrees with her, as his philosophy states that an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and an evil for an evil. Still, he respects Sakura's mindset and says he'll try to follow her footsteps. For the first time since their meeting, Sakura lets out a smile. She apologizes for troubling with odd questions, claiming she isn't a good judge of character. This marks the start of their good friends. The two of them often talk about their jobs. Ray reveals that he takes out garbage at night. During their conversation, Aoba even invites him to karaoke. However, he has to work on another late shift. Suddenly, his phone rings, forcing him to leave the room. A woman tells him they are planning to make their move tonight. However, she doesn't know how Ray plans to deal with the Sakura problem. They can't have a young girl snooping around their business. Ray tells her to worry, as he will personally neutralize her. Later that evening, Sakura goes to check on the orphan dog. However, the high-standard dog only lets the MC pet him. During this fun time, Sakura tells herself that the fire she saw that night must be an illusion. but suddenly, she overhears a man crying for help in the distance. She immediately calls the cops and wants the group to get arrested. Unfortunately, the group belongs to the same tattoo gang that killed the homeless man. They are searching for their men who vanished 2 nights ago. Sakura's expression changes for a second, telling them that she knows something about their men. She starts mumbling that the fire was real. However, the gang members lose their patience and start a fight. Naturally, Sakura isn't scared of a few men, especially with her martial arts skills. She manhandles most of them until one man teases her from behind. With her body paralyzed, the men show their nasty side and tear her clothes. Just as they are about to unlock their manhood, the white dog comes running and bites one man's leg. Initially, they throw the dog away, but it continues to save Sakura. The men eventually grow tired of the animal and kick it around. They injure it to the point of death, forcing Sakura to take action in a last-ditch effort. She tried running, but the electricity had numbed her arms and legs. The boys shift their focus to Sakura, and don't focus on Rei, who just arrives at the end of the fight. He examines the dog's injuries, realizing it won't survive much longer. So, instead of letting it suffer, Rei snaps the dog's neck. He then removes his gloves to light a blue flame that incinerates every gang member. His teammates notice the flames from the top of the building and begin their cleansing operation on the rest of the gang. In the meantime, Rei approaches Sakura and tells her he lied about everything. At that moment, Sakura thinks that Rei will kill him for seeing him commit a crime. However, she wakes up in her house without any injuries. Sakura rushes downstairs to learn what happened with Rei and the men, but suddenly, her father hugs her out of relief. They found her passed out at the entrance door and thought she was in danger. However, the doctors said that she was exhausted from a fever. They also don't know how long she was on the ground and who brought her home. With so many uncertainties, Sakura decides to keep things to herself. She bows her head to apologize for causing them trouble. Yet, her parents are glad that she is safe. Eventually, she asks her father if holding power like Rei over someone's life and death is agreeable. However, her father and Sakura share the same mind, claiming people shouldn't have power over anyone's life even in the name of justice. After her breakfast, Sakura heads to school wondering why Rei didn't kill her. She is hesitant to open the class door out of fear of her life. Still, she courageously goes into the class only to find Rei sitting in his usual spot. However, before they can talk, Aoba grabs and moves her away. She wants Sakura to talk about her pale expression, asking if anything is wrong. But despite her worry, Sakura continues to gawk at Rei. She understands that her newfound crush is unbearable, but tells Sakura to listen to her for a moment. Suddenly, Rei approaches them to listen to the girly gossip. He touches Aoba on her shoulder and insists on listening to their conversation. Sakura realizes that Rei is warning her. He can kill Aoba anytime if she exposes him. That is when she pushes Aoba away, and continues to do so throughout the day. The nail in the coffin hits when Aoba finds her eating alone. She offers to join, but Sakura tells her to scream. Her sudden change in behavior makes her think she fears that Aoba will steal Rei away from him. Sakura wishes to clarify herself, but Rei's gaze tells her that he is serious about killing her friend. She then realizes that this is the best way to get rid of Aoba and keep her safe. However, Sakura isn't the type of girl that can be controlled by others. She decides to confront Rei in front of the whole class, saying they need to talk during their walk home. She also tells Aoba that everything will become clear once she deals with Rei, but their chat seems awkward to Rei as Sakura walks behind him. She wants to stay cautious and in a position where she can immediately capture him. During this time, a kid empties his pockets in an arcade. He attempts to get all the cats in the claw machine. However, soon after a few turns, his change runs out. Surprisingly, he doesn't even take the toys. The shop manager thinks he forgot the cats, but he claims that he just wanted to free the kiddies from their cage. While exiting the building, he sees a giant cat spying on Rei and Sakura. Unexpectedly, the boy's love for cats is so intense that he pushes it to the ground and starts playing. Much to his surprise, the cat calls him Code 3 Yuki and says his mission is to hunt down Sakura. On the other hand, Sakura takes Rei to a place filled with people, thinking he won't act recklessly in broad daylight. First, she wants to know if everything she saw that night was real or an illusion. Rei reveals that his powers are real and those men from the G-Falcon gang deserve to die. She once said that cleaning the trash is a noble profession, and so, by her metric, Rei's deeds should be considered pure. However, Sakura is shocked that Rei has no concept of what he did. He thinks that taking a life is his right. Despite all of this, Sakura believes Rei has a chance of atonement. This is something that makes him laugh out loud, and seeing his cold-hearted attitude makes Sakura realize that Rei isn't normal. She claims that he has no right to kill and take someone's chance at atonement. Yet, when Rei continues to walk away, Sakura raises her voice in anger and calls him a monster. Her sudden outburst makes a child cry. She tries to calm the little boy down, but nothing works until Rei returns and picks up his mouth toy. Sakura can't get a handle on his character. Still, no matter who he is, killing someone is not acceptable. However, Rei claims that her laws don't apply to someone who doesn't exist. He can kill her and everyone on the block instantly. He then places his hand on her face and torches her purse. The poor girl immediately screams and runs, but Rei catches up to her to finish the job. Unexpectedly, he tested her throughout the afternoon to see her real character. Now, it is clear to Rei that Sakura is a rare breed. Still, she insists on knowing the truth behind his identity, forcing Rei to reveal that he is a code breaker. He claims that people like the G-Falcon never repent, and so he gave them the next best thing. But even after calmly explaining his job, Sakura still insists on intervening with his work. She promises to save everyone from being judged by him. Annoyed, Rei makes a vow of his own that he'll kill everyone known to Sakura if his secret is exposed. He will also force her to watch their deaths one by one. His words that afternoon forced Sakura to shut herself inside the room without eating or talking. She keeps on recalling the murder incidents, wondering what kind of horrors Rei went through in his life. Meanwhile, Rei receives a call from his office to write a report on Sakura. He tells her that she's a rare breed who can withstand her flames, something that has never happened before. He convinced the higher-ups to live for a while until Rei discovers her secret. On the other hand, Yuuki finds the former Code 1 Hitomi on a killing spree. He activates his powers and reminds Hitomi about his philosophy: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and a requiem of fury for an evil. A code breaker's philosophy is his way of life. Yuuki rains down his fury on Hitomi with his sound attacks. The waves are so powerful they can rip a person to shreds instantly. However, Hitomi's mind controls another person to attack with their ice powers. The smoke screen built by the collision of their attacks gives Hitomi the perfect chance to escape without a trace. Meanwhile, as Sakura prepares for school, she wonders what's really going on in Rei's mind. A moment he seems like the nicest man in the world, while other times there isn't a greater threat to life than him. Suddenly, she finds him waiting at her doorstep to walk together to school. He wants to ensure that Sakura doesn't share his secret with Aoba or her other friends. However, Sakura says that this goes two ways, meaning she will also keep an eye on him and save people from his flames. The two of them walking together to school raises many questions, but Sakura doesn't deny any of them since it will keep everyone away from Rei. Aoba, on the other hand, is jealous that Rei will stay close to Sakura at all times. Later that day, the teacher tells him to take a checklist from the student for his cleaning duty. Rei naturally doesn't know about the student lounge or wiping floors. He asks the teacher to show him the way. However, the girl with the trust and daddy issues says she'll show him the way instead. She assumes that Rei would start a killing spree after she leaves his sight. But Rei claims he's evil, not stupid. Suddenly, a young girl runs into Sakura and starts appreciating her rack. She asks Rei to join in, but he decides to admire them from afar. Soon, the girl removes her glasses, revealing her eyes of different colors. In that moment, something befalls Rei's mind. He intensively puts his palm on her face and almost lights her up. He then pats her lightly, apologizing for mistaking her for someone else. Sakura demands an explanation for his actions. Yet as always, Rei stays silent and goes about his business. The same evening, he receives a call from the mysterious woman, telling him that everything he needs is in the basket. Furthermore, his target's location has also been sent to his phone. Once the call ends, Rei asks Sakura to show herself. He claims she is awful at trailing a person from the shadows. Sakura overheard their conversation about the basket and his mission. However, Rei puts his hand inside and takes out a puppy. He reveals that the white dog he killed in the park had a puppy. Sakura immediately holds the pup and recalls her helplessness that night. She tells the pup that her mother was brave but she couldn't do anything to save her. Still, Sakura doesn't intend to repeat the same mistake. She sticks with Rei wherever he goes to save the people he is about to kill. Rei doesn't mind a cute girl following him around town, but he keeps reminding her that her world would be upside down if she continues to interfere with his business. Soon, the two of them enter a shady building, and before opening the door, Rei asks Sakura if she really intends to go inside. Sakura thinks that Rei is scared of her seeing his messy apartment. She tells him that a little bachelor room won't scare her away. After she gives him the green signal, Rei opens the door and knocks out a man standing in the lobby. He then goes inside a room filled with the Yakuza. Sakura eventually realizes that Rei is planning to kill everyone. But after looking around, she finds two cops standing in the corner. She bursts into laughter, saying the authorities beat him to the chase. However, Rei reveals that they are not here to arrest them. Ultimately, the chief of the Yakuza orders his men to chat with Rei. He appreciates a high school student having a fiery attitude. This appreciation doubles when Rei reveals he's the one who killed the G-Falcon men on the streets. The boss was already tired of those useless men, and so he offers a job to Rei instead. His job would be to collect all the debts and beat the living shit out of anyone who doesn't pay. just like the man who was locked inside their room. He didn't pay them on time, forcing the Yakuza to kidnap his daughter and have fun with her. For a moment, Rei acts along the story and asks about the pay cut. The two men talking about crime so calmly frustrate the hell out of Sakura. She reminds the officers that their badge represents a duty to the people. Her innocent words make everyone in the room burst out in laughter. The Yakuza boss says that they are not paragons of friendship. They pay the police a hefty amount to avoid the law. In his mind, this is how the world works. The strong win while the weak suffer. At this point, Rei is bored to death. He activates the blue flames and starts cleaning the trash. Sakura insists he stop. However, Rei tells her that these men don't have any remorse for their actions. He repeats his philosophy out loud and, one by one, burns everything to nothing. But despite all of this, Sakura still thinks there should be another way. She lectures Rei about morality until she stumbles upon the room in which the man's daughter was held captive. Sakura goes inside the room to free her, but the poor girl bitches about living life after being molested by multiple people. She thinks that dying is much better. However, Sakura tries to convince her that she can live a happy life. Suddenly, Rei enters and starts to choke her to death. He will gladly fulfill her wish. Yet, unexpectedly, before a few seconds of her death, the girl tells Rei that she wants to live. After dropping her to the floor, Rei reminds her that pain is a luxury that tells her she is alive. He thinks only an idiot will choose death over life. She should remember his hand choking her life out. But if she still intends on dying, he can always come back to fulfill her wish. Rei eventually decides to handle the rest of the corrupt police force parked outside. However, Sakura hugs him from behind, claiming he needs to feel the warmth of another human. She assumes that Rei has always lived alone. Thus, he's unaware of human touch. Unfortunately, Rei believes that he can't change after all this time. He knocks her out with a punch and calls someone to handle the rest. In the meantime, Rei steps outside of the building only to find the other police officers waiting for their buddies. They immediately recognize him as a code breaker and call for backup. But their helper, Hitomi, refuses to pick a fight with someone like Rei and leaves them to die. Just as Rei is about to burn the car, Toki, another code breaker, slams his hammer of justice and steals the kill. After completing the mission, the head of the code breakers calls a meeting and forces Rei to attend. They butter him up, reminding everyone that Rei is one of the elite code breakers despite being a new recruit. Not only that, Rei has been completing missions regularly without any complications. Hearing about himself is great, but Rei rudely asks the old men to move their thighs along. Unfortunately, his enthusiasm and tone aren't appreciated by the leaders. They remind him they can rip his tongue out at any moment. Once these pleasures are over, Rei receives a photo on his phone of a man allegedly working with Hitomi. The leaders ask Rei about the man's involvement with the former breaker and kill him if necessary. They want their loyal dog to be successful, as it is an important mission. Unfortunately, Rei doesn't like being referred to as a dog. He jumps on their desk with his blue flames and threatens to kill them. This is something that has never happened to the leaders, and so they decide to make an example of Rei. Meanwhile, someone from Rei's contacts drops Sakura outside her house while she's unconscious. She stays alive for a few hours until her mind wakes up. Her parents are naturally worried after finding her outside the house. They remind her that this sort of behavior isn't suited for a young lady. Her father asks Sakura to be honest with them. However, she can't say that a man in her class goes around burning people alive, which is why Sakura lies, claiming she joined the mountain trekking club, and part of their training is that they need to learn to sleep in nature. Despite accepting her explanation, her parents know that she was lying. Naturally, her father is worried sick about her, but her mother claims that Sakura always lies for a good reason. Later that day, she exits her house hoping to find Rei. Yet, his colleague, Codebreaker 4, Toki, shows up instead. As they start walking, Toki mentions that he's known Rei for a long time. They are like best friends. Sakura thinks that she can use Toki to convince Rei to kill everyone. This is something that even makes Toki laugh. Ultimately, she realizes that Rei and Toki are cut from the same cloth. Still, she can use him to learn more about Rei's past. Together, the two of them go down to the park to chat about Rei. Sakura is so interested in Rei's backstory that she doesn't notice Toki trying to creepily get close to her. Just as he's about to leap in for the kiss, Rei arrives and knocks him away. He wants Sakura to forget about Toki's words. He is a pathological liar who can manipulate anyone with his life. Yet, the ever-gullible Sakura still thinks that they were friends. During this time, Toki reveals that the higher-ups sent him to keep an eye on Rei and his girlfriend. They have been tired of Rei's personal opinions and judgments in missions and want him on a leash. The boys, however, can't agree on anything, and so they decide to fight things out. Unexpectedly, Toki uses his power of magnetism to attack from every direction. Yet, Rei's fire can incinerate anything it touches. The two of them brawl like barbarians, forgetting they are in a park with people. With no choice left, Sakura intervenes and spots them with her judo skills, leaving the boys impressed. Once everything is over, the boys come to terms that they have to work together on a mission even if Rei disagrees. But for the time being, Rei decides to drown himself in class. The teacher tells them to take notes on the questions she is teaching on the exams. However, Sakura is more interested in learning about Rei's past with Toki. Suddenly, a few moments later, she glances at the window, only to find Toki roaming around the backyard. She instantly excuses herself from class to visit the nurse's office. But that lie is to confront Toki and ensure he doesn't hurt anyone. After a brief questioning, Toki reveals that he is here to take a demo class with Rei. He even manages to fool their class teacher into letting him sit with them. During their lunch break, Sakura offers to share the lunch she made with Rei, but he refuses and runs off. She then chooses Toki as her next victim. Yet, this time she decides to be more assertive with her request. In the hallway, Sakura tells Toki that she disagrees with Rei's methodology. She knows that deep down he's a good person, but right now, they need to find a way to stop him from killing more people. After taking a moment to himself, Toki reveals that code breakers can't stop doing their missions. They are working towards a bigger goal. It may be protecting a person they love or fulfilling a personal vendetta. As soon as they reach a corner, Toki helps himself to her only to get kicked in the face. Sakura warns him not to repeat the same mistake, otherwise he'll receive a kick elsewhere. However, Toki complains that his little sister gets to touch her bottoms all the time. Naturally, Sakura is shocked to hear that Nenin and Toki are siblings. However, before he can talk about it, Rei arrives to save her from the liar. He takes her to the rooftop to fulfill her wish of talking. But unfortunately, a white-haired wannabe French had already occupied the space. Things worsen when Fujiwara shows up at the scene and starts playing with Sakura. Upon seeing her, Toki silently vanishes into thin air. Sakura intends to surprise Fujiwara, revealing that her brother has come to see her. However, no trace of Toki was found. Strangely, Nenin tells Sakura that she doesn't have a brother. Later that night, Rei prepares to meet up with Toki for their mission. But as always, Sakura insists on coming along. Sakura mentions that Nenin didn't remember her brother at all. This forces Rei to reveal that code breakers don't have any identities. All of their previous lives are erased before someone can enter the organization. In the end, if Toki did have a family, it doesn't matter anymore. Once the gang unites, she comforts Toki about being Nin's younger brother. She connects the dots and realizes that Toki does this job to look out for her. However, he denies her claims and says he fights to protect her rack. The boys then ignore her and prepare for the mission. First, Toki, or should I say Magneto, disarms the security system to avoid a fight. However, tearing the gate open causes a commotion that catches everyone's attention. The enemy's forces open fire at them without a second thought. But getting past Rei's blue flames and Toki's literal magnet powers is impossible. He pulls a Neo on them and returns their bullets. Suddenly, two men with special abilities exit the door. One has the power to create tornadoes and the other can turn people to stone. Seeing this, Rei reveals that the government is researching special abilities in this building, and it makes sense that they have given powers to a few people. The two new powerhouse attacks Rei and Toki with strong winds and metals, forcing them to use their powers to defend. Once their attack fails, the brothers somehow combine their abilities to create a strong attack. Toki still manages to block it with a huge chunk of metal. However, this proves that their research is moving fast. But then suddenly, the two men yell that their power has run out. They don't spend a second with the boys and run away. Rei and Toki quickly follow them. In the meantime, a worker inside the lab tells the head researcher Tabata that two code breakers are here for him. Yet, he is confident that they can't escape alive. Meanwhile, the group enters the research lab and the first thing they find is a room filled with children. Their condition tells Sakura that they have been physically abused. However, Toki reveals that these children are one with special abilities. Most of them were taken from the streets and are now being experimented on. Despite all of this, they at least get 3 meals a day with a warm bed. As they go further inside the lab, Sakura wonders how these people can conduct such horrible human experiments. Rei, on the other hand, is concerned about the enemy's power running out in mid-battle. He thinks that it must be related to a failed experiment. However, Toki thinks that they must have become lost. Sakura has heard them use this phrase many times before, but none of them tell her the meaning behind it. Soon, they reach the innermost part of the lab where they find Tabata, the head researcher. But despite two code breakers here to kill him, he calms as a feather. Suddenly, Toki notices that there is something inside the wall. He uses his power to open a tier, only to find multiple organs from different children. Turns out, they slashed open the children who didn't have useful powers. This sight alone is enough to shake Sakura to their core. However, the code breakers remain sane, as they have seen this many times. At that moment, the two men from earlier enter the room with their power fully recharged. They grin and talk about the children they slaughtered. claiming none of their organs went to waste. Upon hearing this, Sakura lashes out in anger. She tells them what they are doing is not human. But unfortunately, Tabata and the others have no self-consciousness to reflect on their actions. Eventually, Rei shuts everyone by unleashing his blue flames. He wants to burn them to nothing as soon as possible, but the fatso breaks the water pipe and attacks Rei with it. Fortunately, his blue flames can incinerate anything it touches, and this ability works the same on water. Not only that, Toki takes charge of the attack, forcing them to retreat. The situation makes them realize that fighting both code breakers at the same time is suicidal. They separate Toki and Sakura from Rei, hoping his attention would be diverted. However, Rei knows that Toki can handle himself just fine. Just as expected, Toki takes Sakura and runs to a corner of the lab. Yet, they are not out of danger as the man quickly catches up to them. He uses compressed air to push back Toki's attack. As both of them are in a stalemate, Sakura notices that the bag these men carry are weighing them down. Although they are still eager to protect it with everything they have, Toki finds logic in Sakura's argument and starts attacking the bags from behind. He even tries controlling it with his powers, but the man reveals it is made from enhanced carbon fiber which can't be controlled. But suddenly, the man's power vanishes into thin air, allowing Toki to land a fatal blow. His attack also breaks the bag and a young boy comes out of it. The same happens with Rei, as he attacks the other artificial Superman. Once the bag breaks, a young woman on the brink of death comes crawling out. The boy in the hallway tells Sakura that these men killed his sister because her powers were useless. He asks Toki to kill them so that his sister's soul can rest in peace. Toki obliges to his request and with his hammer of justice, he kills the man. Still, the boy notices that Sakura is frightened from the sight of killing. He ensures her that these men deserve to die. With that, the boy's soul leaves his body in peace while Sakura can't do anything but watch. The same happens on Rei's side, as the little girl reveals that Tabata killed her little sister as well. However, Rei burns the man into nothingness before the weak girl asks for revenge. She thanks him for his kindness, but Rei reminds her that he cannot end her grief or bring the dead back. By the time Sakura reaches them, the girl's body gives out and dies. Seeing such things unfold tells Tabata that he can't escape. Still, like any other human, he tries to make a run for it. But naturally, Toki and Rei aren't going to let him escape. He asks him how many children he has killed for his stupid experiments. The government provided him with research funding to safely learn about the children's abilities. Yet for some reason, Tabata started slaughtering them. Unexpectedly, Tabata claims that he has a good reason for doing this. His pain justifies his actions similar to what the code breakers do. Suddenly, amidst their conversation, Tabata's daughter Chisa arrives in her wheelchair. It turns out that Tabata's daughter doesn't have much long to live, and so he conducted illegal experiments to find a cure for his daughter. Toki can see things from his perspective. However, they wonder how many daughters Tabata will kill to save his own. Out of nowhere, Sakura loses herself in anger. She pushes Tabata to the ground and starts punching her. Yet in the end, she still wants Rei and Toki to forgive his crimes. The warmth of her hug makes Tabata realize that what he's done was wrong. He can't believe that he took the children's life away without a thought. Once this realization hits him, Tabata acts like a true villain in front of his daughter and volunteers to be burned alive. Meanwhile, Chisa screams in agony, telling Rei that her father was only pretending to be bad for her. She activates her telekinetic powers but stops before her attacks hits Rei. Just as she is about to faint, Rei tells her to remember his face and seek revenge once she is strong. The news of Tabata reaches the world. Yet, instead of revealing his true colors, the media suggests that the fire was an accident. Even Prime Minister Fujiwara is forced to cover up their story. He tells the media that Tabata was a great man and he will be missed by many. Later that same day, he regrets giving the position of head researcher away. He didn't know that Tabata had a sick daughter, otherwise this whole mess wouldn't have happened. After some time, an agent enters the room to tell Fujiwara that his son Toki is here to speak about the latest mission. Despite the lavish breakfast prepared for him, Toki jumps to the main point. He wants to know why they are experimenting on children rather than rats. However, before answering, Fujiwara tells him to eat something. He hasn't seen his son in a while, but Toki reminds him that he's not his own. To him, code breakers are ghosts who don't exist, so it wouldn't make sense to have a father. Plus, he broke his promise to keep Nenin away from this world. Fujiwara makes an excuse for breaking his promise and puts the blame on him. On the other hand, Sakura and Rei continue their argument about the existence of code breakers. She learns they work directly under the president and have a high-level clearance that can help them enter any off-limits area. Suddenly, Rui, a tomboy on her motorcycle, signals Rei to come talk with her. Sakura follows him like a tail, but Rui tells her to give them some space. She doesn't appreciate Sakura being with Rei and putting his life in danger. Still, she tells him that the higher-ups have said that she's now his problem. Unfortunately, Rei keeps his bad boy attitude, which earns him a headbutt. Rui tells him to behave with the higher-ups, otherwise she won't save him. Just as she is about to leave, Rui reminds Rei to use his powers mindfully. If not, then he might become a lost soul like code breakers before them. Overall, she leaves a hard impression on Sakura. Still, she is glad Rei isn't a lone wolf like he claims. She teases him about having many friends and being a softie at heart. However, Rei keeps up the act, reminding her that code breakers don't exist in this world. Yet, Sakura stands her ground and claims that working with other people means they are colleagues, eventually just to shut her up. Rei agrees that he has colleagues but refuses to acknowledge them as friends. This conversation continues until they reach the class. That's where things start to feel awkward. For some reason, all of his classmates hide their belongings like Rei is a thief. Aoba also rushes to Sakura's side, telling her everything is okay. As class begins, the teacher passes out a surprise quiz. Aoba and the others use this opportunity to smuggle a cheat sheet that leaves her shocked. During this entire time, Rei cautiously keeps a close eye on everybody's behavior. He sees Aoba and Sakura running out of the room, and assumes she intends to expose her secret. If that turns out to be true, then Rei will have no choice but to incinerate the entire school. Once their class ends, he takes a detour in the hallways to gather his thoughts. Suddenly, he remembers that his backpack is still in the classroom. Rei returns to take his stuff, but Sakura refuses to let him in. Her behavior makes him even more suspicious of Sakura exposing his secret. Rei rushes to the door and forcefully opens it, only to find the classroom filled with decoration. Unexpectedly, his classmates have wanted to throw him a welcome party since day one. However, their club projects and exams were in the way. The boys, on the other hand, notice that Rei liked to be alone. This will also give them a chance to get to know him better. After the party ends, Sakura and Rei head to the rooftop to get some alone time. Unexpectedly, the first thing Rei does is burn the papers with everyone's name on it. He doesn't want to leave a trace of himself before dying. Otherwise, it will just force people to clean up after his mess. Sakura, however, stops him from burning. She thinks that Rei is a condescending jerk who doesn't value anything in life. But her words are proven false, as Rei memorizes each of his classmates' names and their character traits. It seems to Sakura that their lone wolf is finally breaking out of the act. Meanwhile, Toki is on a hunt for Hitomi. He must find his hideout before more children are killed by his lackeys. Suddenly, his body starts to feel like it's going to burn from the inside out. He finds a corner to catch his breath, but his condition keeps getting worse. While this is happening, the Prime Minister loses all contact with Toki. He fears that Hitomi must have captured Toki or something worse must have happened. In the meantime, Yukinko wakes Hitomi from his slumber, claiming the time has arrived to intimate their plan. Unexpectedly, Hitomi, who can use electricity to control people, already has an army to carry out his plan. On the other hand, Sakura finally gets enough fun out of teasing Rei about his friends. The two of them head back to class, but suddenly, a group of people attack the school. The lightning around the men tells Rei that Hitomi is controlling them. He quickly burns them with his fire, which causes Sakura to panic. Luckily, Rei reveals that these men are already dead and controlled by someone. He also knows about the mastermind behind this act. Unfortunately, Rei can't worry about Hitomi as his own power starts to run out. Despite feeling pain similar to Toki's, he continues to fight and protect the school. Yet, soon, his body reaches its limit and gives out. In that moment, their homeroom teacher, Miyuki, appears out of nowhere to take charge of the situation. Yet her assistance alone means nothing, as the men move toward the class. This forces Rei to muster every last bit of strength and drive them away. He recalls the efforts everyone made during this welcome party, refusing to let anyone get hurt. However, eventually his body gives out from the constant fighting. At that moment, Iwuki arrives on the scene to handle things. The white-haired dude named Hike also reveals himself to be a code breaker. Together, they defeat the enemy to save the day. Unfortunately, Rei falls to the ground after being lost. This is a fate that befalls every code breaker sooner or later. Sakura refuses to accept that Rei is lost, but the others tell her that nothing can be done. After seeing Rei's condition, the group has no choice but to escort him to a safe place. Sakura initially thought that Rei was dead. His body felt similar to the boy that died in her hands. However, Hike reveals that Rei is in his lost form. A code breaker enters the stage when he uses his power too much. For Rei, it was burning the candle on both ends. He overused his flames a lot in the past few days, which resulted in this condition. Once Sakura calms down, Hike introduces her to everyone. First off is Rei. He joined their organization in the end, hence he is number 6. Since he's considered a newbie, the organization asked Miyuki to follow and guide him through everything. Iwuki, on the other hand, is far more experienced than Rei, despite his looks. He is Codebreaker number 3 who can unleash deadly sound waves from his mouth. He is a bit of a character who likes cats more than anything. He himself is ranked number 2. However, the organization has given him a free hand to take missions at will. This gives him enough free time to guide the other code breakers and judge them based on performance. With Rei being the lowest ranked member, Sakura realizes that there must be a number 1 and 5. Unexpectedly, she already met number 5 the other day on the motorcycle, which only leaves the first ranked code breaker. But strangely, Miyuki changes the topic, asking Hike to transport Rei to a safe place. After thinking for a moment, he assumes that the enemy knows about his state, thus moving him right now will be dangerous. The group starts arguing over this, but Sakura breaks the fight, claiming her home is the safest place. She is actually the daughter of one of the most powerful Yakuza in Japan. Still, her father and mother are kind enough to let her friends stay for a while. Not only that, her mother reveals that one of Sakura's friends showed up and is waiting for her in the guest room. The crew is suspicious at first, but then they find a little version of Toki hiding in the closet. Seeing this, Hike reveals that Toki has been lost just like Rei. But unlike their underdog, Toki's lost form changes his appearance. All of the other code breakers also have different lost forms, but the organization doesn't know how they work. Her mother overhears their conversation about lost forms, leaving Sakura flustered. Eventually, she is forced to lie again, claiming that it is just a thing from school. Later that day, the crew goes to the dinner room for a feast. Along the way, Hike asks Toki if he reported his situation to Eden, the organization they work for, but unexpectedly, he kept things secret from them, which made him angry. At the dinner table, Sakura asks Hike about his reasons for being a code breaker, but instead of answering the question, he asks Sakura to tell him Rei's thoughts on the matter. She tells him that he wants to fight evil with evil. However, she is worried that Rei will lose himself in the chaos. Suddenly, Toki appears out of nowhere, drunk to the toes. He gets scolded for underage drinking. He changes the mood and asks everyone to enjoy the feast made by their parents. The same night, Toki finds Hike keeping an eye on his surroundings. It is a boring job, but someone has to do it. Aside from that, he is worried about why Hitomi would attack the school when Rei was present. If Rei was his target, then he could have ambushed him someplace where none of the other code breakers could find him. He thinks that Hitomi's real target was Sakura. Still, it is insensible to attack her while Rei was by her side. If he intended to kidnap her, then doing so another time would be much easier. In the end, he notices there is a hidden intention behind this attack, but none of them can understand it. Meanwhile, Rei takes the entire night to recover from his lost form. He wakes up with Miyuki by her side. She tells him that the team had to transport him to Sakura's house for safety. Other than that, she apologizes for being useless and forcing him to go lost. Rei tells her that everything is fine. He knows that fighting against their former agents who went missing was impossible. Not only that, they were being controlled by code number 1. Hence, they are lucky that he didn't die. Although Miyuki wasn't the only one waiting for Rei to wake up. Sakura's father and the head of the Yakuza enter his room to see how he's doing. He draws his katana and points it at Rei, but he doesn't even flinch. This shows that he's been through many life and death situations and seen horrifying things. Still, Sakura's father doesn't care about his past or his future. He just warns him that if anything goes wrong with Sakura, he and his organization will be in a lot of trouble. At that moment, they hear a lightning strike in their backyard. Rei and her father quickly rush to investigate, only to find Hitomi and an unconscious Sakura. Luckily, Yuuki arrives on the scene in time to stop him from escaping. He is forced to go lost, but still buys enough time for the rest of the gang to show up. Even Rei, despite being recently lost, faces him with the katana that Sakura's father showed to him. As his mentor, Hitomi is proud of his improved swordsmanship. Yet, he pities Rei for being a loyal dog for Eden. His power is so strong that even Rei's blue flames are useless against it. Eventually, the entire gang gathers into one place, and with them around, in the Hike climax, it is impossible for Hitomi to leave with the girl. Unexpectedly, Hitomi claims that his real intentions were to gather all the code breakers into one place. He then unleashes a powerful attack that can wipe them all in one go. However, Sakura recklessly jumps in front of the attack to save her friends. Somehow she manages to absorb the attack into her body, but Rei and the others still scold her for being reckless. During this time, Hike receives a notification from an agent that Prime Minister Fujiwara was kidnapped by an unknown special ability user. As the dust settles, Sakura blames herself for gathering all the code breakers in one place. If she hadn't forced them to come with her, this wouldn't have happened. However, Hike suggests that everything from the school attack to Rei going lost was Hitomi's plan. They couldn't have countered it even if they tried. Now, they can only think of a plan to rescue the Prime Minister before things get ugly. Toki, however, thinks they should let the man rot in some corner of the world. Rui doesn't find his attitude towards his own father rude, and so she yells at him to act like a man. Despite all of this, Toki leaves the group, claiming he has a date to attend. Naturally, Hike doesn't believe that he's got a date in the middle of the night, but he respects Toki's choice to deal with his grief however he likes. During this time, Sakura's father tends to his men. They were badly injured by Hitomi's lightning, yet his man assures him that these scratches can't take him down. Meanwhile, the code breakers take their meeting behind a closed door. Hike reveals that Hitomi's power is special even in the ranks of code breakers. He can manipulate electricity in someone's body to control their every move. Still, the bigger picture is that he kidnapped the president instead of killing him. This means that his revenge plot is just starting and things can get worse. Rui and Miyuki are frustrated that their top and brightest who once mentored them have actually betrayed Eden. However, Rei doesn't care if they were actually friends with Hitomi. It is his responsibility to burn away all the evil in this world. Toki, on the other hand, rushes to their school to check up on Neni. For a few moments, she recognizes and pats him on the head like she used to when they were children. Toki is shocked to see that Neni remembers her, but just as he asks about her memories, she gets flustered and forgets what they were doing together. Still, Toki pats her on the head, claiming he'll fix everything. In the meantime, Rei keeps an eye on Sakura and the other guys. He can't believe why she would go so far as to put her life in danger for a bunch of strangers. Suddenly, one man brings the doctor and comes his way, forcing him to vanish. Later, he finds Sakura's parents looking at their old family album. They want to keep Sakura safe at all costs, but soon they have to leave the room, allowing Rei to spy on the album. He noticed a strange hand-holding technique, but more than that, there are no pictures of Sakura as a baby. Unexpectedly, she catches him in the act of spying. However, instead of lashing out, she reveals that her parents adopted her. This mystery further unfolds as Sakura's parents ask Rei to keep her safe. In truth, they found her on their doorstep covered in blood. Whatever she saw that night fuels her to keep everyone safe from danger. Her parents believe that they can't keep her safe from the past, and thus they ask Rei to act her guardian spirit and keep her from acting recklessly. Afterwards, every code breaker gates in the hallways only to find Sakura training with the Yakuza. She doesn't want them to feel bad for not protecting her, so she decides to hide her disappointment and play along. This reminds the code breakers of a time when they used to have fun together with Hitomi at the center of it all. Hike is surprised that Rui and Yuuki haven't given up on Code 1. At that moment, Toki comes along, saying they will kick Hitomi in the head and fix whatever broke him. But for now, Hike orders everyone to look for the president separately. Even Yuuki, who got lost and became a red cat, goes out to investigate. Meanwhile, Rei as always is stuck with Sakura while investigating Hitomi's apartment. Unfortunately, there isn't a shred of evidence to be found. Suddenly, Rei receives a call from Yuuki, hinting that something serious has happened. While Rei is collecting his thoughts, Sakura mentions that his friendship with Hitomi might be the clue to finding the president. She wants to know what they were like back in the day. However, Rei tells her that it's none of her business and leaves. Sakura tries to follow him, but there isn't a trace of Rei anywhere. Back at Eden's headquarters, the agents tell Miyuki that Sakura's powers are even greater than imagined, though she is pissed that the department hid crucial information from her. They suspected that Miyuki might be working with Hitomi since she was his agent back in the day. However, Miyuki's honest contribution with Rei has proved they were wrong. Before leaving, she makes it clear that her loyalty lies with Rei and nobody else. Meanwhile, Hike starts to piece things together. He realizes that Hitomi is fighting against the Prime Minister's philosophy regarding people with special ability. Soon, Rui returns to report that she couldn't find anything. Now, they feel guilty for killing the police chief and the Yakuza mob. Otherwise, they would have a decent lead. However, Rui isn't worried about past actions. Recently, she has noticed that Hike is neglecting his duties as the leader of the Code Breakers. He didn't object to staying at Sakura's house despite knowing that all Code Breakers staying in one area can prove dangerous. Upon realizing that Rui has caught him, Hike drops all disguise and activates his light powers. Simultaneously, multiple explosions burn the town in different areas. This forces Rui to use her shadow powers and rescue lives, giving Hike the perfect chance to strike. Later, he manipulates Sakura into thinking that Rei is waiting for them at their secret hideout. Sakura is thrilled that she is going to visit a secret base of operation. However, her enthusiasm is turned upside down when she finds the president tied on a chair. She quickly turns to Hike, only to find Hitomi sitting beside him. Hike reveals that he wanted to join Hitomi's plan, and the only way he could do that is by bringing Sakura as a gift. Rei, on the other hand, is a ghost to the entire situation. He doesn't even hear the explosions until Miyuki reports them. He instantly realizes that Hitomi is behind this mess, but instead of making any rash moves, he tells Miyuki that he will personally end Code 1 tonight. At the same time, Hitomi discovers that 12 people died and 4 were injured during his explosion. The news reporter also reveals that the bombs were launched in peak traffic, meaning more lives were lost. He then steps out of his room to find Hike and Sakura arguing over morality. She can't believe that Hike would betray his comrades from a terrorist. However, Hike considers himself the best champion Hitomi ever had, and just to prove this fact, he brought Sakura as a hostage. The only thing left is for Hitomi to tell him his end goal. Hike thinks he can be trusted after the recent exchange, but Hitomi still suspects him, otherwise he would have given him the big picture from the start. He then shifts his attention to Sakura, the rare breed who is immune to the Code Breaker's abilities. He reveals that Rei was transferred to her school to keep tabs on her. He didn't know about his mission at the time, but his organization has been interested in her powers since the beginning. With all that information, Sakura asks what he intends to do with her. Her expression and body language tell Hitomi that she's scared. However, he reveals that she won't be harmed. He just brought her here to ensure she doesn't get in the way. Meanwhile, Hike continues to beg for approval. He even goes to reveal that he turned Rui into a plump of blood. Sakura immediately grabs him by the collar for saying this, but she soon learns that not code breakers are as kind as Rei. Despite doing whatever Code 1 asks, Hike knows that trusting him in such conditions will be suicidal. In the end, Hitomi gives him permission to do anything he wants. However, if he double-crosses him, then his lights would go out instantly. But for now, he asks Hike to do him a favor and capture Miyuki, who is downstairs. She is first to reach the hideout, but Rei orders her to stand down until he arrives on the scene. Unfortunately, she doesn't listen and hopes to end Hitomi's life herself. After climbing a few floors, she runs into Hike. He pulls out a rope made with light and says she wanted to see her in that ever since the day they met. And quite honestly, I want it too. As the show is being played, Rei receives a call from Sakura's mother. She reveals that Sakura hasn't come home and asks if he's with her. At that moment, he realizes that Hitomi must have captured Sakura. But instead of revealing the truth, he assures her parents that Sakura will return safely. Once the call ends, Yuuki yells to catch his attention from behind, revealing that Code 2 has gone rogue. While he was in his lost form, the explosions caught his attention, coincidentally. He saw Hike attacking Rui with his light powers when she was distracted with saving the victims. Rei realizes that their fallen has fallen apart. He and Yuuki rush to Miyuki's given location only to find Hike standing at the doorstep. Even with Yuuki's help, Rei can't find a way to pierce through Hike's defense. In the meantime, he is worried about Sakura and Miyuki being controlled by Hitomi. Eventually, Yuuki notices Rei's condition and tells him to go on ahead. He promises to take care of Hike and join him soon. As the fireball boy reaches the top floor, he finds Miyuki pointing a gun at him. Sakura tells him that Hitomi is controlling her. He uses his powers to send an electric shock down her nervous system to mess up her brain. She unwillingly shoots at Rei, but his flames deflect the bullet. Rei tells her to empty the magazine, claiming he can deflect every bullet. However, Hitomi tells him to stop playing the Man of Steel. If Miyuki is down to her last bullet, then she will fire at herself instead. Rei hesitates for a moment but then activates his flames and rage. Even Hitomi commends his warrior's code, always ready to kill anyone that stands in his path. As Rei runs forward, Miyuki fires all the bullets at her gun. Sakura, on the other hand, assumes that Rei intends to kill Miyuki. However, his aim is the gun she's holding. Still, his speed is too slow to reach her in time. That is when a sudden light glows from Sakura's body. She instantly pushes Miyuki out of the way while Rei lights her gun in blue flames. She assumes that Miyuki's will to fight was why she broke out of the spell. However, Hitomi asks Sakura not to discredit herself. She is a rare breed with the power to nullify all special abilities. She somehow cancelled his effects on Miyuki's body. With the crew back together, Miyuki asks why their former leader is going so far. The Hitomi they knew were always kind to others and reasonable. Eventually, Mr. Ace breaks his silence, asking them to look at the wall with multiple cloaks. He reveals that each cloak records the death of a different code breaker. He even remembers the mission and how they were killed. The Prime Minister knew he was signing their death warrants, yet he never stopped to think about it. Now, he is going to pay for his crimes and die for his country. As his explosives go off, Rei tells Hitomi that he wasn't born yesterday. He knows that their former Code 1 wouldn't go that far for revenge. This is when Hitomi reveals that he intends to publicly execute the Prime Minister in front of the whole world. However, for that to happen, they must first fill their appetite with the explosion. He claims that the code breakers have lived and died in the shadows for far too long. His mission is to get them citizenship of the entire world. They won't be dogs for Eden to protect the weak or to maintain a false sense of peace. Rei starts to see the logic behind his plan. He also believes that they should be compensated for what they have protected over the years. And so, Hitomi asks him to join the cause. But unfortunately, Rei claims that killers like them don't belong in the light. They are a necessary evil for the world to survive. He then burns the entire wall of cloaks to anger Hitomi into a fight. However, Hitomi's lackey Yukinko shows up at the most convenient time to help him escape. He puts up a wall of ice and attacks everyone from above. Rei is the first one to notice the attack on Sakura. He rushes to save her. However, Toki arrives right before the ice is about to hit Sakura. She then recklessly follows Hitomi and gets herself kidnapped. While they escape, Hitomi recalls the past when he was first recruited into Eden. Being a young man, Hitomi was excited to be called Codebreaker number 6. On the day of his recruitment, the Prime Minister sees his test results and physical reports, predicting that Hitomi will have a great future as a codebreaker and someday become king. Just as expected, Hitomi used his philosophy of being the hammer of judgment that strikes all evil to fulfill his missions. He also rescued Miyuki from a yakuza that had killed her family. After every mission, Hitomi goes to the park to watch the kids smile and enjoy their lives. He reminds himself that the Codebreakers are protecting the future from the shadows. Little by little, Hitomi's reputation as a newbie spread all across town. He then got assigned to a mission with Codebreaker number 5. Things went smooth in the beginning, but soon number 5 falls into a deadly trap and loses his life. However, Hitomi completes the mission without a trace of injury. Later that day, Hike tries to ease his pain, reminding Hitomi that Code 5 was a good man. However, the thing that keeps him going is his end goal. He knows their sacrifice is better for the world. Eventually, his entire team is sent out on a mission to eliminate a rogue codebreaker. Unexpectedly, the mission goes sideways, resulting in 4 deaths. That day in the hospital, Hike reminds Hitomi that the mission was complete due to his actions. Hence, he's being promoted to Code 1. Still, he is not happy about his teammates dying from battle. He reveals that 2 of their team members died from their own powers going out of control. He orders Hike to find out more about their powers, while he looks for new recruits and saves them from death. From that day onward, Hitomi ensured that none of the new recruits went on a mission without him. He would always have their back and pat them on the head for a job well done. Out of everyone, he finds Rei is the most outstanding codebreaker despite his low rankings. Although Rei's philosophy regarding Eden and the work they are doing is what troubles Hitomi. Codebreaker 6 is so hell-bent on fighting that he disregards his own safety and jumps in front of guns. His reckless action always forces Toki or the others to come for the rescue. However, Hitomi thinks that they are too eager to jump in a fight. He scolds Rei for forgetting their main rescue objective and focusing on the enemy. Their job is to hunt evil, not to be consumed by it. Later that evening, Hitomi asks Rei about his reasons for becoming a code breaker. Naturally, he thinks he must abolish all evil from the world. Hitomi agrees that part of their job is to eliminate the wicked. However, the other and the most important part is to protect those who don't have the power to protect themselves. He then asks what Rei would do if death was at his door and he had a few minutes to live. Without a second thought, Rei tells him that he'll burn his fire and destroy evil until his last breath. However, Hitomi claims that he would rather die protecting a life. Suddenly, Hitomi falls to the ground and starts snoring, forcing Rei to carry him back to the base. Eventually, the day finally comes when Eden gives them a mission to hunt down the rogue codebreaker that killed Hitomi's previous team once again. However, this time, Codebreaker 1, also called the Ace, promises himself that no one will die. The team carefully heads up to the target's room without any mistakes. There, Hitomi and his arch-nemesis reunite once more. The fireman claims that he will not kill anyone this time if they change sides. He offers them wealth, power, and women. However, Toki tells him that they work for a purpose that's bigger than materialistic things. Hitomi seconds his opinion, saying they couldn't conquer the world if they desired. But this won't make them better than the scums they kill. He swiftly jumps over the fire attack and controls the man into killing himself. After his revenge arc is complete, Hitomi and Rei spend quality time together at their usual spot in the park, but his perfect pact doesn't last for long, as Hike reveals that codebreakers can die from their own powers. It is said that if a person doesn't get enough time to recharge and the gap in their lost forms widens, then their power will turn on them. Hitomi's entire world is turned upside down upon hearing this news. He once worked tirelessly, thinking they were saving lives. However, in the end, it was just a ruse to keep them on a leash. The superiors have always known about this and they call it Code N. From that day onward, Hitomi thinks that the least he can do is give everyone a normal life. He wants to help Rei and the others disappear from the world, but know that Eden will find them. And so, he takes it upon himself as the pack leader to save them. The following day, Miyuki calls Rei, revealing that Hitomi attacked the Prime Minister last night and killed the guard. He then escaped Tokyo without a trace. Upon hearing this news, Rei realizes that Hitomi was lying to them from the start. He said they were going to live and die together. However, now Rei promises to kill him with his own hands. Back in the present, as Hitomi announces the beginning of his grand plan, Sakura wonders what happened in his past that changed him. She still wants to find a way to turn Hitomi back to what he was. Hitomi sets the timer on the bombs to 1 hour. This is the time when every explosive device in the city will go off. But before the final event, he lets Tokyo enjoy a little appetizer with one bomb every 20 minutes. Meanwhile, Rei visits the bridge where he had his last conversation with Hitomi. He notices the Sky Tower and remembers that he and Hitomi decided to visit the top once it was completed. Meanwhile, Sakura's father and his men try to track her phone's GPS signal. They discover that she is somewhere in the Star Tower. At the same time, all of their mobiles receive a message with various bomb locations. Sakura's father assumes that she's the one sending the signals to everyone. On the other hand, Toki and Miyuki try reaching Rei, but his phone seems to be out of service. Suddenly, Yuuki arrives on the scene, claiming that Eden's information on Hitomi's whereabouts were wrong. While they are about to search for Hitomi's location, Miyuki mentions they need to find a countermeasure for the bombs to help the authorities disarm them. Unexpectedly, Yuuki sends a sound wave across the town only to discover that there are 15 O-bombs in total. There isn't enough time to disarm them all. Initially, they decide to stop Hitomi before the bombs go off. However, while sitting in the car, Yuuki sees children playing with their parents and notices their smiles. He decides to stay behind and do something about the bombs. In the meantime, Hitomi catches Hike doing something on the computers in their control room. He figures that Hike is keeping an eye out for intruders and thanks him for his efforts. Soon, Rei shows up to their doorstop alone. Hike says he'll take care of the threat. However, Hitomi is itching to measure his true power. This allows Rei to enter the building and find Sakura. After ensuring her safety, Rei declares that he's going to end things once and for all. At first, he tries to reason with his mentor, telling him that murder is wrong. He admits that the code breakers have committed more crimes than they can count. Yet, it was all for the good of the world. Still, Hitomi refuses to see that his actions are wrong. With that, Rei draws his sword and repeats his philosophy out loud of eliminating evil with evil. He surrounds his blade in blue flames to counter Hitomi's lightning. The sword paired with his fire allows Rei to direct Hitomi's lightning to the ground. However, this method is ineffective when attacked from all directions. Seeing him struggle makes Sakura attempt to break free from her ropes, but she can't save Rei from the lightning attacks from various directions. Eventually, Rei falls to the ground from the pressure of Hitomi's attack. The so-called ace takes this moment to ask Rei's reasons for acting as Eden's loyal dog. However, instead of answering the questions, Rei asks what drove him to assassinate the Prime Minister in the first place. This tells Hitomi that Eden has been lying about his story all along. He never wanted to assassinate the Prime Minister. He went there to talk, demanding that the code breakers deserve a life. However, when he refused to back down, the Prime Minister ordered his men to attack. The situation demanded Hitomi to use his powers, otherwise he wouldn't have survived. Though he is not doing this for himself, as children born with special abilities are imprisoned in research facilities. If their power is not usable, then they are thrown away or researched on. Otherwise they are recruited as code breakers, which is worse than being experimented on. Sakura agrees that Hitomi's right is in the heart place, but going this far isn't right. However, he tells her that the blood of the innocent is on Eden's hand. They were the one to push him this hard in the first place. Aside from that, the people owe them for saving their lives. He thinks they are just idiots who aren't even worth protecting. Meanwhile, outside, the other code breakers do whatever they can to help everyone from the bombs. Yuuki, despite running the risk of entering his lost form, jumps from building to disarm the bombs. Toki and Miyuki, on the other hand, find their way to the tower. They think that using the elevator would be dangerous with Hitomi's electricity running rampant. However, they have no choice but to try. Unexpectedly, Hike was already inside waiting for them to open the doors. He tells Toki that he'd have to fight him to get to Hitomi. For a moment, Toki remembers that he respected Hike's code too, but soon the thrill of a promotion fills his mind with joy. Their clash sends Miyuki flying to the sidelines. Yet, Toki's magnetism isn't effective against Hike's light attribute. He even can make a fool of himself using light. And the illusion becomes real when Hike uses light speed to attack Toki from all directions. Eventually, Toki realizes that avoiding a head-on attack is the best move possible. While this is happening, the Yakuza locate the different bomb sites thanks to the messages they receive. For the first time in history, they work together with the police to clear the mob around the area and keep them safe. Meanwhile, at the top of the tower, Rei refuses to believe that everyone they saved was unworthy of justice. He desperately stands up to fight and end this war between old friends for good. Back on the streets, Toki tries to force all of the clones in one place, yet their light power is destructive enough to blast through any metals. He is unable to hold them off, meaning Hike is far superior to him. On the other hand, Rui returns out of nowhere at the lab where Yukiko is trying to kidnap all the children. Somehow, Toki defeats Hike and reaches the top of the tower only to find his old man tied up like a pig. Fujiwara asks a favor of Toki not as a code breaker, but as a son. However, Toki isn't thrilled by the idea of saving an evil man. He asks what would happen if he just let him die instead. The pieces on the chessboard move quickly, as Rui follows Yukinko to the lab where Hitomi planned to free the children. Still, Yukinko tries to justify Hitomi's actions. He claims that Eden will continue experimenting on the children. They will dispose of those who are not powerful enough, while the others will join the code breakers to die. Their opposite powers put them in a stalemate. Yet, Rui claims that she will save everyone, that includes the children and his boss. Meanwhile, back at the Sky Tower, Rei struggles to stand up against Hitomi. The constant electricity leaves his body paralyzed. Aside from that, their former ace continues to preach justice. He reveals that the missions and the lives they take are not justice. Eden just orders them to kill the people who fall out of line. For example, the G-Falcon gang was executed because they were helping him. Even the police chief was murdered because he was leaking information to Hitomi. In the end, Eden only believes in safeguarding their power and lives. They kill whoever threatens their existence while the other criminals run free. He extends a hand to his old friend Rei, asking him to fight alongside him and change the fate of their kind. However, Rei refuses to work with an evil man. He accepts that Eden is evil, but Hitomi's no exception. The lives he is going to take will be in his hands. Yet, Hitomi is satisfied that this is the price of change. He then electrocutes him to the point where Rei goes lost. At that moment, Sakura runs to Rei's side with her sprained leg and tells Hitomi that he can't hurt him any longer. Unexpectedly, even Hitomi appreciates her parents raising her with moral values. However, if loyalty was paid for in this world, then they wouldn't be in this mess. Simultaneously, Sakura's father and his Yakuza men find the origin point of the bomb signals. They approach the van to disarm the explosive, but two children stand in their way. Initially, the men tell about the danger and ask them to leave. Unexpectedly, the children were sent by Hitomi to safeguard the van. Sakura's father stands in front of his men much like his daughter, claiming he won't let them get hurt any longer. Meanwhile, back at the top of the Sky Tower, Fujiwara orders Toki to save him. Yet, he stands there like his ears went off. At the same time, Hitomi decides to kill Sakura with his bare hands, since special abilities have no effect. During this entire scene, the timer of the bombs goes to 0, but the explosive doesn't go off. Suddenly, Hike enters the room, revealing he ordered Yuuki to disarm the control tower of the bombs before it explodes. Not only that, Yukinko, on the other hand, opens the research lab's main doors and discovers that there are no children present. Unexpectedly, Hike saw through their plans and ordered Rui to move the children to a safe place. With nothing left for him there, Yukinko refuses to continue the battle and escape using his ice powers. Meanwhile, battle at the Sky Tower turns once again, as Hitomi realizes Hike, his best friend, betrayed him. He reminds number 2 that their battle to earn a future for all the children born with special abilities. However, Hike argues that what he's doing is not the correct way. His light powers are enough to keep Hitomi's lighting at bay. He thinks that Hitomi will get lost any second. But strangely, their former ace claims that it won't happen. Furthermore, he claims that Hike and the others have not yet defeated him. There was a reason that he chose Sky Tower as his hideout. At this height, he can send an electromagnetic signal across Tokyo and detonate the bombs himself. Once Hike realizes that their plan has failed, he begs Hitomi to stop and look at the reason. However, he's blinded by grief, rage, and revenge. On the other hand, Fujiwara laughs at the Toki's prank and asks to release him immediately. He, however, wonders if this man even deserves to live. Toki destroys the camera and pulls plans to throw him off the building. Yet, he doesn't have the guts to follow through with his plans. Once the Prime Minister is safe, he reminds Toki about their deal. He voluntarily became his lapdog to keep his sister away from the killing. But now, he thinks that choosing Nenin over him might be a better option. Still, Toki doesn't let him get under his skin. He doesn't want to kill and become a scum like him. Moments later, an electric charge appears on top of the tower and is about to set off. Luckily, Rui arrives on the scene and covers the whole building with her shadow. Soon, the entire gang joins the party and asks Hitomi to stop his killing. However, none of their powers are enough to stop Hitomi from escaping the tower. He takes a moment to tell everyone that being together in one place feels like old days. He also reveals that the citizens of Japan are not innocent and their crime is ignorance. They live their lives in happiness and peace without knowing the cost. Still, Miyuki tries her best to reason with him, but Hitomi disregards their previous relation and attacks her. Luckily, Toki gets there on time to save her from being fried. Yet, even his powers are nothing compared to their ace. In the end, when everyone's pleas fail, Sakura goes and hugs Hitomi, telling him to stop. But in his state, he forgets about everything else aside from his mission. Suddenly, Rei stands up despite being lost. He removes the ring from his left hand and allows the blue flames of Satan to run rampant. He claims that all evil must be eliminated with an evil of the same size. This moment reminds Rei of the time when he used to practice swordsmanship together with Hitomi. He always used to let his guard down at the critical moment, resulting in a loss. Hitomi then taught him to stay focused even when the victory is in plain sight. Back in the present, Hitomi can't believe that Rei can unleash such power after being lost. The fire is so strong that it absorbs the lighting in one swoop. This forces Hitomi to unleash his full capacity and conjure an electric bomb. The rest of the gang realizes that Hitomi must swallow the entire ball, otherwise things will get dangerous. They think his flames aren't capable of something like this and decide to help. However, their attacks are reduced to nothing. But luckily, Rei's blue flames swallow the lightning ball like it's nothing. He then unleashes the serpents of hell to bite down Hitomi's flesh. As his friend screams in agony, Rei feels pain like never before. Still, as a code breaker, he fulfills his job and burns him to nothing. Yet, just like before, Rei loses himself at the point of victory and fails to incinerate Hitomi. Unfortunately, this is not required. Since Hitomi finally reaches the point of code end, his own powers turn against him and electrocute his body. He knew that this time would come sooner or later. However, before his dying breath, he wants to kill the president. Slowly, he approaches Fujiwara, claiming he must pay for the death of his brothers and sisters. But soon, Rei stops him again. The two of them engage in a fist fight, but their punches are filled with agony. Rei reminds him that he was supposed to have their backs. He was the compass that helped them be sane while killing multiple people. Yet, in the end, their leader went and betrayed them. His punches deprive him of the last bit of stamina. And so, Hitomi sits beside the wall, waiting for his death. Yet, what he feared didn't come true, as everyone in the building rushed to his side. Hitomi realizes that even when he tried to push them away, his teammates tried to reach him. Before his last moments, Hitomi reveals that his powers were reaching code end by the time he became Codebreaker 1. He was scared to die alone and knew that his brothers and sisters felt the same way. And so, before dying, he wanted to liberate his teammates from this fate. However, he couldn't contact them as codebreakers are often being watched by other people with special abilities to avoid going rogue. Yet despite all of that, Rei and the others circle around Hitomi, asking him what they should do. At that moment, he feels that his life held meaning even if it didn't go as planned. He tells everyone to step into the light together and live life for his sake. As these words sink into everyone's heart, the president comes downstairs, claiming that everyone has forgotten their name in 10 years. After they have died, he will choose a new team and they will kill for his sake. This is when Hitomi loses himself to anger. He calls him a monster and rushes to kill him. However, Rei and the others stop him from spilling blood. They don't want him to go out that way. Rei holds his hands and tells Hitomi to trust them with the future. That is the moment when Hitomi lets go and rests in Rei's hand. After the dust settles, the Prime Minister drives with Hike, telling him he did a splendid job. He is awfully impressed by the way he acted as Hitomi's friend and betrayed him in the end. However, deep down, Hike knows that he wasn't acting. He wants to kill the Prime Minister where he sits, but that would mean that Hitomi's death was in vain. The silence listens to him bad-mouthing Hitomi. However, unexpectedly, Hitomi planted an electric shock inside him which burns him from the inside out. Yet, it isn't enough to kill the Prime Minister, but just a satisfactory goodbye. With that, the others return to their daily missions. Rui tells Sakura that Hitomi was the one who brought the team together. Before that, it never occurred to them to work together unless Eden asked them to. Sakura searches around the entire city but finds no trace of Rei. She cries on a bench, thinking that there is a lot of stuff she wanted to say to him before leaving. Suddenly, Toki arrives on the scene to comfort her. He tells her that Rei has returned to his duties and is currently on the mission. Eventually, she realizes that Rei will find her when he needs to. Until then, she can be grateful that the peace they enjoy is all thanks to them. Thanks for watching till this long, my fellow men of culture. Don't forget to tell us about your favorite waifu from this anime and subscribe to the channel for more content.